Okay, so we've got here a poem from Gertrude Stein called Glazed Glitter. Shall we read it aloud? Yeah, let's do that. Okay. Let's do maybe line by line. Mm-hmm. Okay. Darlene, do you want to start? We can go around that way.
Okay. Glazed glitter. Nickel. What is nickel? It is originally rid of a cover.
The change in that is that red weakens an hour.
The change has come.
There is no search.
But there is that hope in that interpretation, and sometimes surely any is unwelcome. Sometime there is breath, and there will be a sinecure, and charming, very charming is that clean and cleansing.
Certainly glittering is handsome and convincing.
There is no gratitude in mercy and in medicine.
There can be breakages in Japanese.
That is no program.
That is no color chosen.
It was chosen yesterday that showed splitting and perhaps washing and polishing.
It certainly showed no obligation, and perhaps if borrowing is not natural, there is some use in giving.
Okay. None of
So
those
Paige
words.
picked a gimme. Okay, so let's maybe start with the title. What do we kind of notice right away with the title?
It's an alliteration.
Yeah.
Sure.
And
And a shine, like
Yeah.
a sparkle in both words.
right.
I think there's an association between nickel and glitter, shining in money.
And if we're, are we moving on to the first line? Because it is originally rid of a cover, could be lid of a cover. It's making me think of a manhole cover or something in there.
Oh, you're doing the Jason.
Oh, yes, I am.
Well, so was nickel originally a cover of copper? Didn't nickels used, or they were silver in the beginning, and then they became a different metal because it was cheaper? Did I make that up? Aren't there some old nickels that are actually made of silver?
Nickel itself is an amalgamation, isn't it? It's a,
Yes, it is.
I don't know, copper and, I don't know.
Do we have Wi-Fi in here? Because we could do a quick...
Quick Google search. Yeah, I
Google
could. So what that makes me think of is rid of a cover.
Oh, I
So
see
that
where
it's
you were going that with that. Yeah, that
Yeah,
one
like
metal covered with another.
Exactly. It
Yeah.
used to be something that was
exposed.
more
Yeah.
valuable.
What is nickel?
And then the cover is something that is less valuable.
So the glazed glitter is the glaze on top of the glitter.
Right,
So
right.
you got something with a cover on it.
It makes it seem sort of faux to me, the glazed, or I think of someone's eyes being glazed over, or something that's actually like a little bit dulling, or something that's maybe purposely polished to become even shinier than it originally was.
I think that relates back to some of the past poems we read about trying to expose the process of making the nickel. Asking again here, what is nickel?
Nickel, what is nickel?
Sound-wise, I really love the repetition of the I sound, internally. There are like 8 repetitions of the sound between glitter and nickel and is and originally and rid.
Yeah.
One of the things I love about Stein is her use of repetition, just that.
Oh, yes.
And just a little bit of change and a little bit, I love it.
What, do we know what year this poem was published or written?
It's part of Tender Buttons, so I don't know.
And what year was Tender Buttons?
I don't know.
Ish, wasn't it?
You'd think I would know, but I don't know.
So, war nickels, quote unquote war nickels, manufactured from mid 1942 to 45 were 75% copper, which is a higher proportion than in other years. It went down to 56% copper. So I don't know.
So what's the other metal that's in the...
Nickel. They're a combination of nickel,
and
copper,
copper.
silver, and manganese. But these wartime ones had a specific. But Gertrude.
But
is
this would have been
pre-
before then.
Yeah. So, okay. So scratch that.
Hold on, I'm downloading. I actually have Tender Buttons on my
said it was like 50% copper.
Yeah.
That's interesting that it's called nickel, but it's mostly composed of something else.
Right.
Well, and the change, if we can move on, the change is that red weakens an hour, and we think of copper and red.
Oh yeah. I love that. What about, can we break that down, that red weakens an hour further?
Well, if you have a sunset, it's the declining day. I'm not sure we're talking about money here too. The title is Glazed Glitter, and I think glazed glitter means something else. I think she's trying to, she's starting in with the money, but I don't think that's her. I think it's easy to think she's talking about money here, but I don't think she's talking about
I'm going to
money.
do another Jason and
Yeah.
trip on all that glitters is not gold.
Yeah.
But so maybe that is pointing us back toward money or treasure.
Yeah, I mean,
metal.
Or the thing that we value,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Or the thing that attracts us somehow, that catches our eye. So what is it, Darlene, that you think she's talking about?
I don't know
if it's
yet.
something
I don't
else?
know yet.
Well,
I don't know.
I think if we jump to the last line in the first stanza, I guess there, certainly glittering is handsome and convincing. That sounds very much like all that glitters is not gold. Something doesn't need to
Yeah.
be convincing unless
Yes,
it's
it draws
positive
us
to be
in,
something
right?
else. Yeah. So the change in that is that red weakens an hour. The change has come, and again, change, right? I think she's
God,
she's
yes,
still kind of
course,
playing, right?
of course.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't even know. Did they call it change back then?
Oh, I think
yeah.
so,
In your
yeah.
pocket?
Yes,
Is that
I'm
that's not in
pretty
our?
sure.
I don't think it's too modern yet.
Of course.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yes, I don't think we're talking
And then
about
we've got
money,
the
but I
red.
think
Yeah,
that is
yeah.
a
She's
matter of
using it as a, like
Again,
a
like
valuation of something.
Red weakens an hour, like, you know, when you're talking about finances, when you're in the red, you are in a weak position. You are, you know, so if we want to make that point, we really could. I don't know if she's making that point, but we can certainly go there.
Right, and that's okay. It's just the way we read it is the way we read it, whether she meant it that way or not.
There is no search. Could that be like a treasure search or a search for value or beauty?
Well, she says
What
the
glitters?
change has come. There is no search. That means it's here. The change has come. There's no reason to search for
We don't
it.
have to search for it,
okay.
we don't have to do the treasure hunt.
Yes,
it's coming to
but there is
And
that
sound-wise, you guys, I love that she's done this switch. Change starts with the ch sound,
The
and
change.
search ends with the same sound. There's kind of
She
this,
certainly does play with
Yeah.
sound
I
a lot.
love it. It's one of my favorite things, yeah.
But there is that hope and that interpretation, and sometimes
Well, is that what you're looking for and hoping for as you read? Is the
The search.
meat of it, the treasure is the meaning,
I mean, the use of the word interpretation does sound kind of meta,
Yeah.
right? Like that is the work that we're trying to do here.
yeah.
And there is a search in the poem, right? There's a search for meaning.
Right.
And that apparent juxtaposition from there is no search, but there is, those two phrases. But there really is, like we can't get away from the search.
There is
What I'm
that.
thinking is the change would be how we used to write poetry with a meaning for us to interpret versus now not necessarily.
Yeah.
Or at least her way of trying to modify language to be something else. Kind of like a difference is spreading type line.
That's
Yeah.
what the change is not. That's what I was thinking when I read that.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, 1914 for Tender Buttons.
1914.
Uh-huh.
Was the publication, so this
Okay.
is before that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and like that, the difference in spelling
Let's
was
see, there
exactly
is
what I
no
thought.
search, but there's that hope and then sometimes.
What does sinecure mean?
A position that you get for like a lifetime, it's like a lifetime appointment to a bureaucratic job that you don't really have to do anything for, I think.
Well, I think of it sort of as safety or like it's a safe place. It's a guarded or protected kind of position maybe.
It sounds
Like
like
tenure?
secure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just sounds like secure, right?
Yeah, it does.
Without the IN, take out the in.
Oh,
Yeah, exactly. Take out the sin.
Take out the sin.
And you have the cure. It's all fair game, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
So surely any is unwelcome. I feel like unwelcome is such a jarring word there. If we're talking about hope and interpretation, and surely any is unwelcome?
Uninclusive.
I
Almost like
assumed it.
Dickinson.
I thought the any was going back to interpretation. Hope. So
Yeah, that's what I
hope
would
and
say.
interpretation are unwelcome to me, which I don't understand, but that was how I read it.
There is.
Well, the hope of finding a message in something you're reading, like Al was talking about, everybody's looking for a takeaway when they read something. That's what you're trained to do. The takeaway is what you take with you, a value, a message, a theme that you get from something you read. So maybe there's but there is that hope and that interpretation and welcome.
Sometime, twice. Not sometimes.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought that was interesting too. Sometime sounds to me like someday, one day. It's less of a guarantee.
The other thing I think with sometime is that maybe the speaker is thinking of one particular time. Sometime any is unwelcome, and sometime there is breath. Like maybe the speaker's thinking there is that one time I remember that there was breath.
But what is breath in this context?
Cleansing and
Freedom, maybe?
cleanly, feeling clean and open because
Was it like the
Sometimes there
new
is
current
breath.
in a long dress?
Uh-huh.
The new wind that's blowing.
there's like an openness.
But and there will be a sinecure. One thing about a sinecure is that you're not, you don't have to earn it.
Changing
And
fate or something. Well,
yeah, it's just given to you kind of as a reward, like for service.
Also, I wonder if she's making a connection between breath and clean and cleansing.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at just the structure of the
yeah.
words, the words look the same.
And if you want to go all the way back, it's being rid of a cover, right? Like all of this is about like breath and opening and pulling off
Rid
that
of a cover.
Exposure,
Yes.
yeah.
exposure.
It's interesting that so to me, breath is pausing to take a breath. There's no breath in this line though. Sometime there is breath and there will be a sinecure, and charming, very charming is that clean and cleansing.
Yeah.
So maybe
Interesting.
it's that hope that there will be a breath. But what I think that's interesting is charming, very charming, is that clean and cleansing? Is that a question?
Ooh.
It doesn't say that charming, very charming
Okay,
is
that's a
clean
good
and
point.
cleansing.
Because then the next sentence sort of verifies that. Certainly glittering is handsome and convincing.
Cast
That
down.
charming. Yeah, it's like,
So is it really
Yeah.
clean and cleansing? Ah.
has she done that with punctuation before where it's like maybe it's a question, but
Yes.
yeah.
Because I feel like with Stein, everything's a possibility.
Yeah.
Right.
Does she ever use question marks?
I don't think so.
No, I've never seen one.
Yeah.
It's all
lots of
period. She
periods.
uses periods.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's
Okay. So we've got something, a change that's come.
Okay, I think,
Yeah.
what did I get here? Okay, I lost it.
I'm wondering, certainly glittering is handsome and convincing. Is that something, I get that that's untrustworthy. What is glittering seems handsome and convincing, but maybe it's not.
Anything that has to be convincing to me is immediately suspect.
Yeah.
As not actually true.
Right.
You know?
Yes, because certainty isn't like in her vocabulary. So.
And charming, very charming, handsome and convincing. That's all.
It sounds like
Something you say about somebody
ironic
you
a
don't
little
quite
bit.
trust. Yes, exactly.
I think it's a comparison, right? Charming is clean and is it clean and cleansing versus glittering is handsome and convincing. So there's like a opposition between clean and cleansing versus handsome and convincing.
I think that's good.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And charming basically also being handsome and convincing, right?
Yeah, that's how I would link them, and sinecure with that too, because that's how you would get a sinecure is by by charming or somehow ingratiating yourself with someone in power.
And sinecure and nickel, maybe there's a connection to being handed money.
Oh yeah. That's the glitter that you get.
Well,
Nickel. What is nickel? It is originally rid of a cover. That's almost maybe like a cast-off statement. Nickel. What is nickel? You know, it's money is nothing. Maybe is what she's saying there.
Worthless.
Well, and were nickels originally made just of nickel?
not 100%.
No.
Because that's what I was just
Yeah,
wondering,
yeah,
that
yeah,
the
yeah,
whatever
yeah.
metal came in, that the copper coming in is the cover.
She is into elements, like
Malachite.
or rock, right, malachite, and there was something else.
Well, let's look at the second
Okay.
part and see if we can draw any connections there. So,
There is no gratitude in mercy and in medicine. Does medicine go back to the cure and sinecure?
maybe.
She's heavy on the alliteration. We've got the clean and cleansing and the mercy and medicine and the glazed glitter.
We're doing no gratitude in mercy and in
So,
medicine.
gratitude and mercy, that's such a counterintuitive statement. So when you show somebody mercy, you would think they'd be grateful, right?
Yeah.
But is the person showing mercy grateful? Right, if there is no gratitude in mercy, gratitude is a response to mercy, but is gratitude a part of the mercy itself?
I don't know. And in medicine, I mean, we think of doctors having mercy, right? And
Yes.
feeling empathetic towards their patients. But
The question is like, who has no gratitude? Is it the is it the person
Is it the
they're being-
receiver?
or is it the person like, is they saying that people don't do merciful things, or doctors don't do medicine
Out of
out of
gratitude.
gratitude or out of that connection?
Gratitude in mercy and medicine.
We have clean and cleansing, we have handsome and convincing, and we have in mercy and in medicine. So maybe there's, I don't know.
She is doing a lot of pairing, isn't she?
yeah.
Doubles.
Yeah.
The next sentence doesn't help any.
Well, that's
Right.
But there's got to be a clue in there are breakages.
There can be breakages
in Japanese. I just that's got to be telling us
Something.
Well, Japanese, wasn't that the time in France when everybody, no, I guess it was Chinese art and artifacts, everybody was fascinated by them. Or maybe it was Japanese.
Yeah, could be. I know what you're,
So
there's sort of a fascination with the Orient.
Exactly.
That's when
So
they-
breakages could be of
Pottery.
pottery, yeah, ceramics, or something to do with the language.
Well, that
Yeah.
like I was wondering about that, because to me, like the way Japanese sounds is very like it has a lot of breakages in the flow of the word. It's
In the
not
sound.
It's not a melodic. It's
It doesn't-
more of a
Staccato.
which is more how Stein writes in English. So maybe
And the sound of breakages in Japanese is so different from anything else we've heard in this paragraph.
Breakages in
We've got
Japanese.
This
That's
sentence
very
itself
hard.
sort of forms a breakage.
So whether it's language or art, which one she's talking about, that's hard to figure
Oh,
out.
well, what about if there can be breakages in Japanese? What about if to break out of the old models of language, you have to go to leave English and go to Japanese to liberate yourself?
Well, if there's no gratitude and mercy and in medicine, maybe there's some freedom in deconstructing language. So if these like traditional forms of science or of relationship or of communication or of interaction are no longer satisfying, maybe there's something, I don't know, more fulfilling about, or more freeing about the exploration of language in another culture.
Yeah, and as Lori said, that maybe that's just pointing us to the sound quality of language, leaving behind meaning and just thinking about the sonic qualities of language.
Can be breakages in Japanese.
Whatever's left over besides the meaning.
Are there? I kind of feel like in the first part we're sort of talking about what's valuable and what's not valuable in a way. So we're talking about glazed glitter, money. I wonder if there's. Is she talking about value at all here? I don't know what's. There's no gratitude and mercy, and mercy and medicine certainly sound like good things.
Well, we're going to get to stuff that seems like it's going back to value.
Yeah,
when we get
yeah.
to perhaps washing and polishing, it's borrowing and giving, but
I don't know if we have enough here yet.
Yeah. How about the next line? That is no program. Do you think she's speaking of a program to renew language, like almost a manifesto? How do we go about making the language new, liberating ourselves from the glittering surfaces that are, admired but don't have true value?
So I actually was thinking the same sort of thing, except I thought it needed that next sentence too. So you've got these two first sentences. There is no gratitude. There can be breakages, and then you have that is no program. That is no color chosen, which is again not a program. It's a going with the flow and not sticking to any kind of rule. You didn't choose a color. You don't have a program.
Yes.
Interesting on the spelling of program.
That seems
English,
to be
right?
English, yeah.
That is no color chosen kind of makes me think, instead of not choosing a color, choosing the absence of color. That's choosing not to
No
have
color.
color at all.
So actually, it is a choice.
It's choosing
choice.
no color.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
So maybe all of this is trying to answer the is that cleansing and clean part, where it almost seems like she's trying to look for solutions to something, to some question she's asking.
Right.
Oh, that's interesting.
Not mercy, not medicine, perhaps Japanese, but not programmatically.
Yeah.
So she's like sort of like ticking off the boxes. Okay, it's not this. It's not. She's trying to think inductively, deductively.
I don't know, I kind of think, is no color sort of the opposite of glittering?
Oh.
Yeah.
Or the opposite of red.
Yeah.
Yeah, so red and glittering would be associated with this falseness, the handsome, convincing, and the no color is good.
It seems like a recurring theme in Stein, lots of colors being mentioned and used.
Oh, always,
It's-
yeah.
I found it hard to wrap my head around what she's going for with those.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the part of a long dress that I could just
There's
not
some
make
that
anything
just
up.
don't seem to go together. So it's interesting, that is no color chosen, it was chosen yesterday.
Right.
So,
Yeah, so
if
that
we
goes with
chose-
your interpretation that it was chosen. the no color.
that showed spitting and perhaps washing and polishing. So that makes me think of the cover again.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
It makes me think of
The
the
glitter.
nickel and how maybe if you had dirt, you had change in your pocket, if you wanted to shine up your shiny nickel.
Yeah.
Spit on it and rub it.
Wash it,
Oh,
polish
yeah,
it.
and
Well,
there's
and
that
that whole
expression
phrase.
as shiny as a
Nickel.
new nickel.
Yeah.
or-
Yeah, or I was
Right.
thinking spit and polish, you know.
Spit
Yeah.
and polish,
Yeah,
yes.
If you want to, and that goes back to the glittering and handsome and charming, right? If you want to impress someone, you better spit and polish yourself up.
That is no color, that showed.
How many times does she say the word no or not in this stanza?
Uh-huh, you're right, that's
Yeah.
negative.
She definitely
Thread.
likes her negatives. She definitely, like, that's,
Obligation.
I was-
That kind of goes with a payment or a
Oh, yes, an
contract of some-
obligation,
some
and gratitude.
sort.
and back to the gratitude.
Well, and then borrowing and giving, right? Really, where the gratitude is.
It certainly showed no obligation, and perhaps if borrowing is not natural, there is some use in giving. Again, mercy.
Right, which side of the coin are you on?
No, that's all these pairs. Different sides of the coin for all these different pairs.
Interesting.
There you go.
No.
So,
Okay.
if we're thinking about this as a meta poem, I guess I'm thinking about if borrowing is not natural, like borrowing a style, borrowing a
Yeah.
form, borrowing from tradition. If that's not natural, maybe there's some use in giving your own idea, in creating something new, in choosing no color or
And maybe that it was chosen as the whatever form you chose or the whatever style.
I think you can use that with the first line of that stanza too. There's no gratitude in mercy and medicine. Mercy being making it easy for the reader to figure out the poem, and medicine being giving them what they want or what they want to hear. I guess.
Or giving them some sort of like a help,
Yeah.
a helpful words to help them get through life.
So there's no gratitude, meaning in the end you're not really giving them much, so they have nothing to be grateful for.
oh, that's so interesting.
I go along with that.
I love that.
So did we decide that the washing and polishing is in opposition to the clean and cleansing? That the washing and polishing is,
I think it's in opposition to glittering. So glittering is handsome and convincing, but the washing and polishing actually maybe gives us something that is clean and
glittering.
cleansing.
Oh, it does.
It's clear and cleansing and not glittering anymore.
Yeah. I think that's like taking off the glaze. If you wash and polish.
Yes.
Which is what she's doing with language.
Taking the glaze off the couch and getting to the
Washing and polishing, getting down to the individual
Getting rid of a cover.
nuggets.
Oh, and
comfort, you can
taking
think of
off
about
the tarnish that might have been obscuring the truth.
We can think of cover as a book cover.
Oh,
If you really want to go there. I don't know.
or as a facade, or a that
Has many
charming
meanings.
face.
One thing she does make you realize is how many different meanings words have.
Oh, almost. That's why Jason's approach.
Yeah.
Just trip on that.
Okay, so is it a poem about a poem? Is it a poem about writing, about language?
Certainly could be.
Yeah.
We can certainly make it.
Kind of gives it some sense. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it starts as about a medal or money or whatever, but it certainly seems to go to meaning and language and
Yeah.
I'm
it's a
curious
big-
about what anybody thinks about spitting.
Yeah.
That's it just jumps out at me. It doesn't seem like it. I can't imagine Gertrude Stein spitting.
Like a
What I think of it is
Not that
something that's glazed and glittering would not want to be associated with something that's spit, right?
Exactly,
So
that's
actually
very-
doing the cleaning and washing, you need to sort of spit to be able to do it properly. So
It's like the real elbow grease, the real like getting your hands dirty with
the actual
work.
work necessary.
It's authentic, it comes
It's from the body.
you.
It's literally.
Maybe it's like your first draft.
Your phrase called spitting. I'm so angry I can spit nickels. I mean that was a phrase that my stepfather used
I don't
back in the
remember
day.
That's
So
good.
unless he made it up, which I doubt, that was definitely so.
Okay.
I'm also
Spitting
thinking of
nickels.
spitting image,
Oh,
but I don't know if that fits because if we're choosing no color, if we have no obligation to tradition or to to borrow, then it's not gonna be the spitting image.
I think about
It's something completely different.
like
No.
you kind of spit out your first draft, your first ideas, your kernel of an idea, and then you wash and polish it. It was chosen yesterday. You just spit it out there.
It was chosen yesterday that showed spitting, and and then washing and polishing is editing. Yeah,
Perhaps not.
yeah.
There's got two perhaps in
Oh
that
my
last
gosh,
at
yes.
the end there. Perhaps and perhaps. So
Which I love because it makes me feel like, okay, if she's perhapsing, then we can perhaps too.
it almost ends on a really positive note.
yeah. Well, and she's thinking as she's writing, and that's what close reading is, right? It's
Oh, I like
thinking as you go.
I think there's something contradictory in our reading of the hope and interpretation that is unwelcome now, right? If we're thinking of interpretation being something that's unwelcome, but here we are able to perhaps be finding meaning with this poem.
Yeah, there definitely is sort of a little problem there.
I think I'm not convinced that any refers to interpretation.
Yeah.
Or hope. I was wondering about that too. Like I wondered if any.
Sometime maybe. Any sometime is unwelcome.
I just think I can't think of any without thinking of anyone. That anyone is unwelcome.
Or any as in glitter or glaze. There is no search, but there is that hope and that interpretation.
Does any refer to search? No search?
Well, is this open in, is this new style of writing unwelcome by the literary establishment?
Right, it could not be us who it's unwelcome to, but society or something.
So, and
It's supposed to
that's
be a
probably
journey,
true.
though, right? Like it's a journey through. It's almost a logical argument where she starts in one place and then kind of works through it. Like she starts in this first paragraph or the second paragraph.
And maybe she's talking about if you're like, there's no search. Wait a minute. Like as a poet, as a writer, I almost have it here.
That's a typical experience reading
There
Stein,
is.
I think. Almost have it.
Where to go?
Okay, so there's no you're searching for what you're going to write about, and you stumble across something new. There's hope. You know, you're going off in a new way, but surely that's unwelcome. But sometimes you manage to land a job doing what you're doing, and it's great. It's charming and it's cleansing, and certainly glittering is handsome and convincing. So you're off doing your own thing, and you go down the unbeaten path, and sometimes somebody says, "Hey, that's good. You can have this job," and you're like, "Oh, that's great," but is it really great? Or
Maybe
not?
any is the openness. maybe the surely any is unwelcome. Maybe any is a stand-in for like there being any solution to the poem. Is a stand-in for the poem itself being without a definite quote-unquote meaning.
So could maybe going back to change
is unwelcome. Yeah, maybe. Maybe change is unwelcome.
Surely any is
breath
wrong.
is
Sometimes
like
there is breath. Sometimes there's a little breath. Sometimes there is room for a little bit of change.
Or maybe breath is like an exasperated sigh. Maybe the openness is unwelcome and there's disdain for that. And there will be a cynic and charming. There will be like the status quo.
Yeah.
But that's not clean and cleansing.
Yeah, between sinecure and charming, very charming. Yeah, is clean and cleansing separate from that? Is the clean and cleansing related back to the breath and opposed to the sinecure and charming, very charming and glittering?
I still think that the is that instead of that is calls into question the cleanliness and the cleansing.
Yeah, I think that is definitely a question.
So I think it's
Is
kind
that?
of
No, it's not.
yeah.
I see.
Sinecure and charming is not actually clean and cleansing, just as glittering is not clean and cleansing.
And then
Okay.
there's the charming, very charming, which kind of implies charm over charm, right? So that's
Another glaze.
over,
Double
and
glaze.
so that something that's too good to be true, charm that's too slick, or
The silver tongue.
yeah.
Oh,
There's
silver
charming
tongue,
and then there's charming.
silver nickel.
Yeah. You guys, I'm so.
I know. Maybe we should move on.
Do we want to do final words?
Want to say a last
do it?
thing? Yeah, that's a good one. You want to start, Paige?
So, as always with Gertrude, I'm left with more questions than answers, but I just love exploring Gertrude's use of language and the way she plays with sound and the way she plays with repetition and all of that making me think more deeply about the poetry.
Yeah.
Lori?
I'm still, there's just a lot here and it's not all completely come together for me yet, but I'm going to remember there is no gratitude in mercy and in medicine. That's just a kind of haunting statement for me, and then at the last line then, perhaps if borrowing is not natural, there is some use in giving, which is a much more hopeful and positive statement. So those two are going to be the ones that are going to stick with me from this, and I'm going to kind of bring those together in my head at some future point.
It will appear in the Caltech.
Exactly, it'll be in my Caltech magazine. Absolutely, nobody will know. I'll get it into a story about robotics or something.
I think a lot of this line at first seems totally random and it's so open to interpretation, but at the same time, even though we're left with a lot of questions here, I think when you start to get at something, it all sort of unifies. And I think that's what keeps this from being just nonsense and being like actual poetry, is that there is something there for us to grapple with and make sense of, even though the way we do it might be different and subjective per person.
Yeah, I agree with what both of you have said, and I do still feel a little bit confused, but I like coming away with the hopefulness in the last sentence, and I just love those two perhaps questions. So it shows that I don't know that she's completely made up her mind yet either or not.
Yeah, I think there's a generosity to the last line that I really like. Perhaps if borrowing is not natural, there is some use in giving. So whether that's giving our own experience, lending our experience to the poem and reading it, or whether that's like question of the human condition. I think it's a good way to live.
Well, I don't think any of the Stein poems that I have read that you can take one meaning away that explains everything in the poem. I mean, there could be one theme that would support some of the words we looked at and might not account for others. But I love there can be breakages in Japanese. That's my favorite line. And I think that the poem is hopeful and that breaking with the past, that does give us possibilities of new meaning and new sounds. So.